Ken, how are you this evening?
Better now that I've seen you, Dan. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm a little sad because last time we did this, we were in the same room, in that room that you're in right now, and now I'm back. But I'm back in Virginia, and you're still there in Arizona. But
It's
tonight,
beautiful. Where it's beautiful, Dan.
let's play, Ken. What does that even mean? Let's play.
Let's talk about structured play versus creative play, the kind of play that I grew up with because I'm as old as dirt. And so when I was a kid, we would get home from school. We'd have to change out of our school clothes, put on our play clothes. Mom had snacks lined up. It was like a Hostess cupcake, for those of you who remember those amazing treats, or a ho-ho, or something in that whole Hostess line, a glass of whole milk. And then it was out to the backyard and over the fence to play with the neighbors and make up games. Like for us, playtime was pure creativity. We dug underground tunnels. We built tree houses. We made forts out of used boxes. We created games. We made up rules. We just invented stuff out of nothing. And some of the best memories of my life, we'd go on bike rides or play with a dog or whatever it was. But it was all about creativity. It was all about invention. And it was all about the need to create something from nothing. Compare and contrast to today. My husband is a school teacher, and he's just struck by the fact that kids today have everything structured for them, even playtime. So playtime isn't playtime, it's parents shuttling them to football or hockey or soccer or baseball or basketball or some weird combination thereof. And the parents are exhausted at the end of the day. The kids are exhausted at the end of the day. They're supposed to come home and do homework then, and then get up and do it all again the next day. So, Dan, is that really even play at that point when there's so much structure built in, so many rules built in, where there's no real room for creativity, for invention, for just making stuff up, and for having to deal with the consequences of what happens if you hurt somebody? What happens if somebody gets hurt? How do you resolve conflict as a kid? What are the lessons that you get to learn of that are going to serve you really well later in life? What happens if that's not available to you anymore? Because everything is structured and protected and you're shuttled everywhere you want to go. Daniel, what do you think?
A lot to unpack. I mean, for my trip, I have a lot to unpack, but there is a lot to unpack there. It made me think of this house that I was in, and the sister came over to hang out with the brother and brought their dogs together. So the sister and brother used to be roommates, and then the sister had moved out, and the dogs were so happy to see each other that they were literally wrestling all over each other. And they're like, isn't this great? The dogs love to see each other. They will wear themselves out. They're going to sleep really well tonight. And that's what we used to do as kids. And I'm not as old as dirt, but I'm getting up there because if you recall, if you listen to this every time, last time we recorded this, it actually was my birthday. Well, I think it was the day before my birthday. And Ken was nice enough to take me to a very nice dinner. So thank you for that again, Ken. But no, growing up, we were always outside. In fact, when I was in Arizona, I was hanging out with professional baseball players, and we were talking about playing baseball growing up. And in my home, we would play home run derby in the backyard. So we actually had a yard. Nowadays, people have very small yards at best. And in our yard, we used the house as kind of the fence in left field. And we hit balls up on top of the roof and they'd roll down off. Or sometimes we hit them so long they go over the roof into the front yard. And we had a different part for the outfield. But it was, winter comes where I live. And when winter comes, we were sledding on that same hill that we're playing baseball on. We're sledding down. And the very bottom of the sledding hill was actually a half-court basketball court in the middle of the woods that my dad paved. And so we had a basketball hoop, and we'd play all these pickup games all day long. And we would ride skateboards and ride bikes and go over ramps. We used to ride all over the neighborhood. When my mom needed us for dinner, this is sounds like I'm old as dirt, but the statement, my mom would ring a bell, literally, and we'd have to distinguish, oh, that's my mom's bell. And that meant it's dinner time. We'd have to come home. But no, like you said, Ken, I had a uniform for school. So that was the first thing. We're like, get our uniforms off and put on our play clothes and get outside. And we were immediately joining up with the other kids in the neighborhood and riding bikes around and doing all the stuff I just mentioned. But no, that is, I clearly think, sorely missing from today. And here's the real question. Why, Ken? Why is it sorely missing?
I think that it's sorely missing from today because, at least initially, there was fear introduced into all of this, right? Like, we used to climb trees. I loved heights. I'd love climbing as high as I could get. And I'd yell into the house to my mom to come out and see me because I was so proud of how high I could get. And she would applaud my climb like it was successful. I was like Sir Edmund Hillary having, conquered Everest. And it was just the best feeling in the world to have my mom super happy for me, having made that kind of an accomplishment. I saw a kid climb the other day that was like 5 feet off the ground, the branch he was on. And his mom was freaking out. You're going to fall. You're going to break your leg. And the kid's look went from like joy and elation to terror. And I'll be darned if he didn't just fall out of the tree. Didn't hurt himself. He was fine. But man, shook his confidence right there. And I think fear has crept into parenting. I'm not a parent, so I'm not an expert on this. Dan, you are, and you certainly can speak to this. But I think there was fear that crept into there. Now, we used to ride our bikes to school too without, and this is like an elementary school. We just rode our bikes to school. We never thought about it. I think, that started getting scary for parents too. Parents had to bring kids to school and drop them off. And then, I'm recounting these stories because my husband's taught elementary school for 34 years. So he's sort of seen the evolution of all of this. Parents walking their kids into school, like into the classroom. The whole notion of helicopter parents, like having to be there at every moment of every turn of every day. And I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine who does have kids. It's about half a year ago. It was a year ago or so. It was like pre-pandemic. And he was saying that he so wished that his kids would just play with the kids in the neighborhood, but they didn't know who was going to go first. Like he felt like they had to have some sort of a collaborative agreement in the neighborhood. Like, okay, we're all going to pull out of the sports teams and we're just going to have the kids play. And they had a cool neighborhood and a cul-de-sac. So just felt safe for that. And nobody really wanted to take the first step. It's like they might be losing some advantage, and I would just guess that the chance of your kid, who's playing whatever, little league or playing some sort of organized sports, of actually making it huge and going to the majors or going to any kind of professional sports is probably really, really, really low. And if they've got that talent anyway, it's going to get developed at some point in time. But seems to be, at least among some of the folks that I've talked to, a desire to return to that. And part of it is driven by exhaustion on the part of parents, like working all day and then being the shuttle service to evening sports. So I think it started with fear, and I think it accelerated, and I think maybe we've crested the hill and we're starting to see at least a desire to return to more community, more neighborhood activities. And, who knows, maybe that could be one of the outgrowths of the pandemic that is positive. Maybe there's going to be a greater emphasis on your immediate community and on doing things together.
So I'm curious if those listening remember the name Adam Walsh. So when I was growing up, Adam Walsh is the son of the host, John Walsh of America's Most Wanted, and his son was kidnapped at a mall. And I think they later found him dead. I don't remember his age. But that story, I think that was one of the starting catalysts to parents starting for the first time to consider and be concerned that their kid was at risk. Like somebody could take away their kid. I believe that story, the kid was at the mall with the mom or dad and just got lost for a second, and some abductor had taken him and then later killed him. Super sad story, of course. But when we were growing up, my dad was in the FBI and he used to always work really hard on Saturdays. He'd have us work really hard on Saturdays. And one of the things my dad loved to do was wash the cars. And so he was on the driveway washing the car and we were riding bikes. And there was there's probably a house about 4 houses down from where we lived around the corner that has really cool driveway. And we'd ride this to the end of the driveway and we'd jump. It kind of had a little ramp and we'd jump off the end into the street. And we knew the house across the street from this little ramp because they had husky puppies. And we love these husky puppies. In fact, there was an older couple that lived there and they let us go through the dog door. So we'd go in their fenced backyard, play with these little husky puppies. There were like 10 of them before they would like sell them or give them away. And they would let us go through the little dog door into the house and like continue to play with them in their house, even if they weren't even home. Anyway, long story short is that, so one of these days we're jumping off the ramp and we see these guys looking in the window of the house with the husky puppies. And so we talked to them. We're like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, we know these people. And we're like, oh, who do you know? And they basically didn't have a clear story. And so we rode our bikes up around the corner, told my dad, these guys are going to rob this house. And my dad said, oh, yeah, sure. If you see them bringing TVs out, call the police. My dad, FBI agent, says this. So I know it's not his territory. And lo and behold, the next day, we hear that not only did those guys rob the house, they got in through the dog door, stole some jewels, some different things out of their safe. And we had to look through a police book of potential people who had been arrested prior to see if we could identify the people who we had talked to as kids. I only tell that story because it speaks a lot to how laid back and loose people were up until there started to be this, I'll say, series of events that made people go, maybe we shouldn't be so laid back about this, right? Maybe kids should be in seatbelts. Maybe they should be wearing helmets on bikes. Maybe, all of these little maybes. And then it turned into, like you said, it's like we just create this bubble around play where it has to almost be like systematizing rules. Think about what we called it, play dates. Play dates. When did you have to make a date with another parent to allow your kids to play together? What happened to kids just going, hey, want to come over? Or even better, you just go to their house and knock on their door and go, hey man, let's go. Right? And they get on their bike and you go play together, you do whatever you do. So I think we've gone from this openness to let kids be kids, man. Let people figure it out, right? Like they're going to be fine. And then we started to have events happen and we thought we're going to protect these events. And we just created this bubble that got tighter and tighter and tighter to the point that parents now manage and run kids play and call it play dates.
So I remember some of that stuff happening. I guess the question that always hits my mind is like, how much did we exaggerate? And it's not to discount anything bad that happened. Those are tragic events. But I think that's takes on a life of its own. And as it does, then, like you said, Dan, this bubble gets created, the whole helicopter parent thing starts to happen. And we go from allow kids to be kids to kids have to be watched and managed and protected at all times and in all places. And I wonder if there's some happy medium. We know helmets are a smart thing. We know seatbelts are a smart thing. We don't want to not do that. I didn't grow up with those, half of my life. They weren't mandatory when I was growing up. But that doesn't mean that they're not good things to have. And at the same time, I just think about the value that I gained in having to create something. Like what that meant to have my mom say, go play. And that was it. And we just left. It was a different time. We were very close with our neighbors. We all left our doors unlocked. You locked your door at night before you went to bed. That was like the closing up of the house, turn the lights off and you lock the doors. The doors were unlocked during the day. If I was at home during the day, like on a weekend or something, my she had 2 really close friends in the neighborhood. They just walk in. We go over to our neighbor's house. We just walk in. There wasn't even any knocking. It was just like, oh, Ken's here. Go play with him. it was just a different feel and experience. So I'm wondering if it's just a way that we can get back to something that allows kids during what I think is just the most creative period in life to actually be able to express themselves, to learn some skills around leading, following, resolving conflicts, communicating, still being friends, fighting even, and making up, and still being friends. I think those are such valuable skills that I was able to develop and bring with me later into life.
I think clearly the reason that we've come here, we've not only created these restrictions and put this little bubble around it and had to organize it and make it so structured. I really think the culprit is technology, which I happen to love. We're using technology to record this right now and to be able to video stream across the country, which is awesome and amazing. But I think for all people, they need to leave their outboard brain, the device, usually their phone, right? Or other devices that they're using. They need to have, I think they need to schedule, just like a play date, you need to schedule a no digital time. And I think by scheduling a no digital time for people, that can allow room to play. I think it's really, and I think this applies to all ages. I think it's got to be, it has to start with scheduling time, and it doesn't have to be anything amazing. Play can literally just be like walking outside. Like what you could start by walking down your street. If you happen to have woods, that's even cooler. If you happen to have like a little mountain or something to go up a hill, even cooler, right? Like take it at your own speed. But take time and literally don't wear these earphones that Ken and I are both wearing right now, and leave the phone behind. But think about that. Immediately, if you're listening, you're reacting like, oh, my safety. If you need to, bring some mace with you or bring a loud whistle, right? But we immediately are like, we've created this bubble around everything. We're like, what would I do? How would I know where I'm going without my phone? What would I listen to? I don't know, birds, leaves, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's like, I think we need to start really small. And I think it has to start with elimination. So elimination is eliminating the phone, scheduling the time, and then just be open, go back to that openness and freedom to be able to go, I don't know what I should do. And I'd say start by just walking without anything else and just see what happens, see what you observe.
So I go for at least one walk every day. Dan, you met our dog while you were here. He loved on you a lot. And I take him for a walk every day. It's about a 20-minute walk around the block. I never take my phone with me, never have headsets in. I just want to be present to him. I want to hear the birds singing. If I, run into a neighbor along the way, I want to be able to have a conversation. I don't want to have anything digital. I don't want to be available. And the not only like the peace that comes in that 20 minutes, but when I get back, I'm recharged. I'm like, I'm ready to sit down. I'm ready to do work because I've had 20 minutes of actual disconnected time. And if you've got a puppy dog, man, there's nothing like that to be with, to have that kind of a companion with you. But I so agree with you. Start small. Leave your phone at home. Go for a 20-minute walk, a 30-minute walk. Take your family with you. Talk to each other. Point things out. Notice the seasons changing. Look at birds if you see them. Observe a sunset or a sunrise if you're up early. Just do something that allows you to reconnect with nature and with each other. Allow technology to go away for just that short period of time and like recreate recreation. That's sort of clever.
A famous song for baseball is "Put Me in, Coach. I'm ready to play," and they play that song a lot during baseball games. And that's been a conversation I've been having with the baseball players I work with, which is if you look, and I'm sure I've said this in prior episodes, which is the two greatest fears of all humans is the fear that I'm not good enough, and if I'm not good enough, I won't be loved. And that's just someone's opinion, but that's what I go with. So I'm not good enough and I won't be loved. And not good enough means a lot of things. So when it comes to this, I'll say the 2.0 version of "Put me in, coach, I'm ready to play" is for you to take the initiative to say, like, put your hand up and be the first to do it and then invite someone else. What does that mean? It means, like we just said, go out and walk and then start the walking group, right? Be like, invite a neighbor, invite a friend and say, we're going to meet up on Tuesdays and we're going to go walk for a half hour. And we're both going to leave our phones behind and we're just going to either enjoy each other's company. We talk about what we talk about, but we're just going to enjoy that. And then see if you can build a team out of it. Maybe you create the neighborhood walking group. And one thing that annoys me, but I accept it because I'm giving this advice, is when people are walking and they're blocking the street and I can't get by in my car because it's dangerous at night. So wear reflective gear. But other than that, I love the idea of having a group of people go out walking together. So go on a path, stay out of the street, but do that. That's the 2.0 version. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Be the first. Raise your hand.
So something else that comes out of that in neighborhoods when, and this is from we've got 2 police officers that are part of our neighborhood watch program. When neighbors know each other, when neighbors do things together, when there is activity in the neighborhood, people out in front yards. We had a campaign a while back, a front bench campaign, and people were just encouraged to either like put a bench or some chairs out in their yard and actually be out in their front yards to just be present to the neighborhood. Crime goes down because people know each other. They know who should be there and who shouldn't be there, and they're caring for each other. And so the idea, Dan, of like having a walking group, having any kind of a team that you build up that just moves through the neighborhood, just furthers that. It's going to be great for your mental health. It's going to be great for your physical health. It's going to promote safety in the neighborhood. And it's also going to give you an opportunity to get to know your neighbors so that when you leave, they know that you're gone. And I think this could then extend to your kids. You could start to set that kind of an example that you see dad or mom put their phone down. That's all they need. That's the example. And that's the one you need to set.
So let's wrap this up. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Let's play right now, guys. Like Ken said, you be the example. And if all you do is set the example for your spouse, your siblings, or your children, even if for a parent, be that example. Start with you and go out there and play and enjoy life to its fullest.